All right, I just finished PDX scanner calls, and yes, I've been drinking today. And there's no better time to watch Sammy Dessou's General Manager Report. And every General Manager Report by Sammy Dessou is garbage, and I expect this will be garbage. But he's got a great smile, and he really is a great cheerleader. I mean, really. I don't remember any TriMet general manager being such a good cheerleader as Sammy Dessou. He really is the number one cheerleader I've seen in 20 years of watching this crap. This guy really knows how to cheerlead. Everybody's doing an excellent job. He thanks everybody. He thanks every team. He thanks everybody. It's quite a spectacle. And I appreciate you, Sammy, because, you know, we like entertainment, us TriMet groupies. We want to be entertained by silliness. And one of my favorite entertainment, even though I want to kill myself after watching these board meetings, is the General Manager's Report. So, on your mark, get ready, get set.
Managers monthly report. General Manager Dessou.
Morning, President Simmons, members of the board, and staff and the public. Thank you all for being here today. This morning, I will be sharing timely information on an update on security.
Update on security!
The December ridership report numbers. I would share some great news about our FX 60.
Great news about the FX!
Foot articulated buses, and also
read it off that computer, Sammy. We know you can't do this by heart.
a reminder about Rosa Parks Day.
Rosa Parks Day, they're going to give you a free day, everybody. It happens to be a Saturday, by the way. There's a Roberta Altstadt. Look, can you see her up in the corner? There's that fucking... She's right there. Public enemy number 2.
Which is just around the corner. First, I want to address 2 high-profile shocking incidents that we have understandably gained attention over the past month. My thoughts and prayers are with
his thoughts and fucking prayers. Thoughts and prayers. Do we have to listen to thoughts and prayers from you too? It's bad enough we have to hear this from politicians. Can you please not do that, Sam? Can you please not do thoughts and prayers? All right, don't do that. You know, we hear that from politicians, so don't use that. Figure out something else, like my best regards or best wishes, something else. Stop using the standard lines that everybody uses.
Those hurt both physically and emotionally during those attacks. We at TriMet strive every single day to provide transit services for our community that is safe and reliable.
And it is neither safe nor reliable. Check out our scanner feeds on Twitter. Check out my blog. It's neither. Sorry, Sam. We know you're lying. I know nobody will see this, but I see it. I'm your one human being on Earth that's watching this nonsense.
But we travel through 533 square miles, 3 counties, and what happens on our system is a reflection of what's going on in the communities.
Yes, that's true. I've said this during his town hall. He's right. I'm not going to debate that. It's absolutely correct. But that doesn't give you an excuse for your operator shortage, which you let happen, okay? You allowed your system to collapse. Yes, the society is collapsing. That is not your fault, nor anybody on the board's fault, or anybody's fault in general. That is the fault of the oligarchy, which is running everything, of which you are an agent. But you let the system collapse, Sammy. Okay, you should have been doing these trainings a long time ago. But I know what's up, Sam. I'm not stupid. I watch this shit. You're building back better. You let it destroy so you can build it back supposedly better, and I'll believe that when I see it.
We serve. Last night, I spoke before the Oregon State Joint Committee on Transportation. I was joined by other leaders of TRIMET and leaders of our 3 other Oregon transit agencies as we called out the regional crises of houselessness, mental illness.
Oh, you called it out, did you? You called it out. I'm sure that's going to really make a dent in it.
Drug addiction, and crime. These issues are affecting all parts of our communities and TRIMET. And our fellow transit agencies are not immune to the challenge they create. It will take elected leaders, business leaders, and the community members working together to help fix these problems. So I've asked Andrew Wilson.
You have not fixed any problem. You're gonna pass the torch over to somebody else like you do. Yeah, I see. Okay, let's listen to this hack.
Our Executive Director of Safety and Security, to provide a security update on the efforts and how we are seeing some success. Andrew, I'll turn it.
Seeing some success. Like what? Like what? There's no safety response team for the bus drivers. We just heard a call. A Save the Mall driver specifically asked for the crisis team, and he was told by dispatch, "Oh, we have no way to communicate them." What the fuck is that, Sam? What the fuck is that? You have no way to communicate with your safety response or your crisis response team? Then you don't have a crisis response team, do you, Sam?
Over to you.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, I think we were all really shocked and horrified by a couple really well-publicized incidents this last time.
Okay, he's gonna. Okay, let's see. I'm sure he's gonna talk about the kid and the face biting. Both incidents happen from mentally ill, disposed people who are thrown into the community, nowhere to go, and this is a result of policies from the highest levels, where you have all of these dispossessed people wandering around aimlessly among the population because the so-called leaders can't find a place for them to go.
So we really did want to give you a full update in terms of those incidents, and also go into sort of our strategic actions that we're taking right now and some successes we've been seeing.
But he's not looking at notes. You should watch him. He's just talking. See, that's the difference. He knows, he's got it in his head. He knows how to do it. He knows the material, and he's able to do it.
Before we do that, I wanted to talk about these incidents in more detail. Next slide, please.
All right, let's hear it. Yeah.
So you may recall.
All right, this woman was some fucking psycho who saw the devil, and the other guy also saw the devil. Okay, she's just sitting there. I seen the video. She got up and pushed some kid out of the blue. How can you can't prevent these kind of random acts. And look at all these TRIMET security people. One there, one there, one there. Is that one too? So they're all there. But they can't prevent something like that. You can't know what's going to happen. Okay?
All have seen the video related to this. Our surveillance cameras captured this at 5:30 p.m. On December 29th. This is a toddler being pushed by an individual onto the track. The toddler was
out of the blue. The woman said, "Oh my God, that's Satan! That's Satan! I gotta push her down on the track. Maybe the train will run her over." I mean, what are you gonna do about insane people? You can't do anything about it.
Was not seriously injured. Their mother and some other folks recovered them from the track. But the assailant in this particular case gave no warning that they were going to be lashing out or doing anything violent. We've since learned that this individual suffers from mental health, doesn't have a known address.
That's correct. She's insane, and you can't stop it. There's nothing you can do. You got people there. Look, they're all right here. You can't stop that kind of thing, okay? This is a society falling apart.
And also had been involved in a prior incident in 21 where there were media reports show that they were not charged in that incident, but very similar lashing out event indicating mental illness. So
this was not TRIMET's fault. This incident's not TRIMET's fault, okay? It's not. They got nothing to do with it. They had nothing. You can't stop it, man.
This was a disheartening event for us. I'll say that security personnel were available on the platform. The law enforcement professionals were contacted. You may recall we moved our East Precinct to Gateway a while back. I've done that. I think I updated you on that in October.
Yes, they got there fast. Quick arrest. Yippee-doo for you. Just look, stop beating around the bush. Just say what it is. We cannot prevent random acts of violence. Nobody can. Okay? The public is left to its own devices. Although, in some advanced countries, where they actually care about their citizens, they have actual barriers between the goddamn tracks and the citizens. They don't do that in America because, America, they don't give a shit about us. You go to Hong Kong or places like that, you can't get pushed onto the tracks because there's a barrier there.
That resulted in this person being arrested within 1 minute, which was, I think, helpful emotionally for the mother who was there dealing with this situation. And they are still in custody, and we're looking at ways in which, we can...
Right, ban her off the system for life like you did with the other guy. That's really, do that. Do your little, we're tough on crime bullshit crap. Appease those, kill them all,
prevent these types of incidents, but at the same time, this is one of those incidents where, there was nothing to indicate this would occur. And so this goes back to this concept, and you'll hear this in the next event too, of we really do need help with our mental health services in this area and a more collaborative approach regionally. I was with Sam down in Salem last night, and it seemed clear from not only our perspective, but from our peers that we do need that collaborative approach. So if we go to the next one, and this, another very high-profile, horrific incident occurred out at Cleveland. This actually occurred on the 3rd. It was at 2:17 a.m.
This transit system wasn't even functioning. Okay, this is not a TRIMET incident. It happened on TRIMET property. But, it's got nothing to do with TRIMET, okay? Let's not, as much as I enjoy picking on them, these things have nothing to do with them, okay? Nothing. You can't prevent this shit. They got some homeless people roaming around out there. They say the attack was unprovoked, but I wonder because the guy he attacked is a convicted child molester. So I wonder about what actually happened.
A.m. in the morning, so it was a closed platform. We weren't operating service, but an individual attacked another individual very horrifically. In this particular case, Multnomah County Sheriff's Department and Gresham Police Department responded to the event, and they arrested the suspect on scene. They are still in custody. But I think it's important to remember that this in this particular case, this is non-service hours, and it was on a closed.
It's nothing to do with TRIMET. Just say it. It's got nothing to do with TRIMET. Okay, these incidents have nothing to do with you. Okay, why can't you just say it? Okay, what do you have to do with this? These are not your fault. The one time it's not your fault. You're talking about two incidents that are not actually your fault. Okay, it's just amazing.
Closed platform. We do direct our security services when our folks are at the platforms. We try to make sure that as we spread out our security, that they're available.
Yeah, spread them out. I see them running around in packs of 10. Okay, start spreading them out for Christ's sakes. What are you thinking, man?
For our riders and when people are in open service, and this is something we're looking at strategically going forward. So, but both very shocking, senseless kind of incidents, and were disheartening for all of us. We do hope in both cases that the victims recover fully, and wish them well in these incidents. I think that this is part of a broader discussion that we need to have as a community in terms of how we can limit this type of activity out there.
Yeah, well, that's a bunch of crap. You can't stop any of this because there's too many people walking around with no place to go.
So with that, I'll move forward to some of the security actions we've been taking.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can see a staffing update. I've been providing this throughout this year, but you can kind of see that we're continuing to grow our presence. In Salem last night, this seemed to be a strategy that is something that everybody is doing, really trying to grow presence, and we've had...
I don't know, you know. So this crisis response team isn't on here, you notice? And they've confused us with all of their fucking... They've changed all the names around. They're no longer like fare inspectors. They have transit security officers, customer safety supervisors, customer safety officers, safety. So we don't know what the fuck they are. Okay, what the fuck what do you mean you have? What do you have 4 separate titles for the same goddamn thing here? What is that? What the hell are you doing? What's the difference between a customer safety officer and a safety response team? What's the difference between a customer safety supervisor and a customer safety officer? What the fuck are you doing?
Communications with LTD and Chariots along these lines as well. You can see we made some gains in 22. That transit security officer number is actually now 115, even into January, so that was the end of the year number. Our customer safety supervisors have increased and are going to continue to increase to 46, and you can see the customer safety officers moving into that 80 number. It's important to know that on our customer safety supervisors, they are providing code enforcement.
Okay, those are now the fare Nazis. They were called fare inspectors. They call them customer safe. They changed the name from fare inspectors, aka Nazis, to customer safety. See, that's a little psyop there. A little psyop. Our attempts to brutalize the poor have now been disguised as a safety mission.
They are actually looking at ways to change behavior and make sure people are following code on the system. So some of the issues that we see
talking about, you don't even follow TRIMET code. Your own fucking TRIMET doesn't follow TRIMET code. TRIMET does not follow its own code, folks. They issue exclusions without paperwork based on somebody's opinions. So TRIMET does not enforce its own code. So he's lying through his goddamn teeth. We're going to make sure they follow the code when you don't even follow your own code. But you get away with it because that's the way it is in America now. Government can do whatever it wants and there's nobody going to stop it. That's how we have to live.
With them, also need customer safety officers support, which is that second group there, customer safety officers.
Well,
as
what's
we
the
grow
difference between
that.
them? Say, what the fuck is the difference between them and them? Customer safety supervisor, what the fuck is the difference? You mind telling me? What is this garbage?
Team to support them, that gives us more flexibility.
And then the safety response. This is the most ridiculous garbage I've ever heard. It's like, let's make it as confusing as possible for people to understand what the hell we're doing by having 4 separate things that are supposed to be doing the same thing. This is your bureaucracy at work here. This is your technocracy at work. And all of this stuff should be in-house, not contracted out. But, you know, I don't know. These are Allied and Portland Patrol. You know, it's just so much nonsense and shit.
In terms of how we approach the system at different hours and those types of things. And of course, we've talked at length about our safety response team as well.
Oh, you have? When? Let's hear about it.
So I will, we can go to the next slide, please.
Okay.
The transit police.
Shut up! Let me read this. Task force model led by, okay, there's the sheriff. There's a fucking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them in one spot. That's really fucking great, man. 19 of 65. I think you need a few more. Strategic missions, whatever the hell that. This is where they go wrong. They think they can have these sporadic missions and somehow that's going to change anything. Local law enforcement response to serious incidents. Yeah, they get there eventually, depending on what else is happening.
Police division, we did move 1 officer up to 19 this year. We were at 18 for the majority of last year. We continue to work at ways in which we can utilize this group get them to a larger number so we can utilize them more efficiently on the system. We do focus in, and you've seen some of these in the press, and there's been some media related to the strategic missions that we're doing using the Transit Police Division. And I want to highlight that because that's a really good way for us to engage with the community and use all the tools that we've built over this last year related to...
Here we go with the tools. We have tools.
When we go out and do these, we have safety response team there. We have customer safety supervisors there.
We have safety response. We have customer safety. We have all these different things. And who knows what the hell they're all doing, but we call them different things for who knows why.
So it's kind of a joint effort, and we don't have to use the same tool for every event. And I stress that because that's why we have so many different folks, because we don't want law enforcement used on every case. You know, that's not the appropriate tool in every case. And so, but with that, I say that they are absolutely vital to us, and we do need them in the background to address some of the more violent situations that might arise, et cetera. And so we are committed to building that group back up to 65, but we're also very proud of this collaborative approach where we're able to use different tools for different
tools. We've got tools. We've got wrenches, we got hammers, we got all kinds of tools. We've got screwdrivers.
Events, that sort of thing. And those are really highlighted in the best ways at these mission events where you have
they go out and they do something. Oh, let's go to Gateway for a few hours and see if we can round up any people with warrants. It's completely useless as actually having an effect because they don't do them that often. They do three a month or something. Not very many.
There are 4 different types of security personnel out there addressing issues. And
4 different types of security in one mission. It's fucking ridiculous.
And those are very good, and I'm very proud of that team. It's important to recognize that when we're talking about law enforcement and transit police, that we are still dependent as an agency on the community law enforcement teams around us as well. So as Portland suffers with getting their group fully staffed, as Gresham does, that affects us as well, because they are often the ones that are going to respond first to some of these events, and that's how we've always been set up. 19 people to...
No, that's not how you've always been. You used to have your own transit police in-house at TRIMET, okay? Go back to the 80s, they had their own police force in TRIMET, not all these other cops.
Staff an entire division like this is very, very difficult, especially when you think about the 8-hour shifts and vacations, etc. 65 is the target we want to get to, but even with that, and in the past, we still needed support from the community law enforcement around us. So I just stress that because this is part of that collaborative community.
Well, yeah. Why isn't the local law enforcement responding? I mean, why do you need any of the transit officers? If you have an incident, the local law enforcement in the jurisdiction that the train or bus is in responds, just like they would to any incident in their jurisdiction.
Effort that we need to engage in and make sure that our law enforcement teams are well trained and healthy around us as well if we're going to do well in this space. So I'll bring that out. And next slide, please. Some of the strategic actions that we're taking right now, you've seen that we are continuing to use a maximized presence to deter inappropriate and criminal activity. We're seeing some success already, which I'll talk about in a moment, with that strategy. And so we're continuing to do that. As our numbers grow, we're looking at new ways where we can be out on the system. Some of these things are related to more coverage at platforms, particularly in high crime problem areas that we've identified. More early morning code enforcement missions, which are something that we are starting now.
Yeah, they're going to check your fare, kick all the poor people off the bus. Maybe rope in some fucking warrants, Predators and prey.
This is to be able to do some of these efforts, we really needed those staffing numbers to increase because we have so many other things during the daytime ridership to focus on as well. But we're getting to that point with personnel where we can start moving into these areas. And then, of course, more security personnel actually riding buses and trains, and that has already begun as well. You will probably start hearing about this. I've got a lot of favorable feedback to have folks actually, they see them on the platform, then get on the train and ride a couple stops. Those types of things are things that we're moving towards as well as we increase that person.
You should be on the trains at all times. You should be moving from train car to train car and from train to train. And they should be stationed at transit centers, and every time a train pulls in, the officer should sweep the train for problems. Okay, that's what you need to do. It's not, you don't need to be some genius to look at and to see what's going on here.
Personnel number. So some exciting things on the future there, I think, in terms of impacting our safety and the perception of safety out on the system. We're going to go into kind of transitioning a little bit into some positive successes that we've seen this year. Again, I think in large part this is as a result of our increase.
Great. It's great out there, man. There's less people, see? Less incidents, yep. Suspicious circumstance. Unwanted person. Unwanted. In the ditch. They should change this to in the ditch, number 1. Crazy person, number 2. Get in the ditch, number 3.
Increased presence on the system. And also I think a lot of this is due to returning ridership as well. But we're seeing calls for police service go down 14%. The top calls for service in 22, you can see there, welfare checks, suspicious circumstances, and unwanted persons. We think this is, again, directly tied to some of the strategies we're employing. 21 was not necessarily a great year, so I don't want to over celebrate. We have a lot of work to do. But I do think we're seeing some incremental changes, which are encouraging. It's very important to note that calls for service are defined as people calling 911 or the emergency line to report an incident that resulted in a police response. And I will say, just slightly half or more than half of the calls last year were for non-emergency, and not surprisingly with societal issues in the communities we serve, welfare checks are the top reason people call for a police response on TRIMET properties, which again speaks to that kind of some of the larger society and community issues we're dealing with. Next.
Yep, public transportation is the last refuge of the disposed Americans. There ain't nowhere to go. You have a criminal government stealing it all, and you're going to die in the street. So where do you go? Well, you go to public transportation.
Slide, please. One of the key areas that we've really been focused on.
Yeah, you see, it's like everything is great. Look at this chart, right? I don't know if I believe this based on what I hear on the radio. What do I know, though? I hate everything TriMet's doing. I'm a big TriMet hater. No, actually not. I'm just reporting what I'm seeing and hearing.
This year is protecting our employees and reducing physical assault on the system, as well as verbal threats and harassment on the system. Again, we're seeing some good progress there. We have a long way to go. When you think about the fact that we had 170 assaults versus roughly 220 last year, that's a good move, but we still had 170 of physical assaults. So don't think we're not focused in on this. We are trying to move this number down, but it does seem like we're seeing more progress on this number in the latter part of the year, which again fits with that increased presence which occurred in the latter part of last year. So we're continuing to put people out there to sort of be there for our employees and operators and our riders to enforce behavior or just ensure good behavior on the system. So some of the societal issues that we're facing, and we've alluded to them before, these are really difficult for us because we can control some of the activity on our system, on our platforms, etc. But at the root, we have a mental health crisis, a houselessness crisis, and drugs and addiction that are on the.
Yes, he's correct. Can't blame TriMet for these things. Nope. You really can't, unfortunately. I wish I could, because they're responsible for everything. That's funny.
The street, and I think living in Portland, as we all do, we know this, we see it out on the street, and what, as Sam said earlier, what our communities are facing, we're facing on the system too. And so we're utilizing all the tools that we have available at this point, and we're taking a collaborative approach and really spending time with our partners and peers in terms of...
He's very well spoken, isn't he? He's very well spoken. Looks good. Look at that perfect beard. Speaks well. A high professional, definitely. A very refined technocrat. I will give you that, sir. You're very good at your job.
How we can work together to solve some of these issues. But this is, a lot of these issues are outside of our purview, and we need help. So
right, yeah.
With that, I think I'll turn it back over to Sam.
All right, well, you did your job. Sam likes you. And you were pretty much correct. I think, within reason.
Andrew, thank you, and really appreciate your testimony last night at our state capitol. So thank you for that. I want to reiterate to the board what Director Wilson stated, and the commitment that we remain committed to improve safety and security on our system, and we fully support a coordinated and collaborative approach in dealing with the challenges that we're faced in our community. But critical, we need state and local lawmakers to lead this change. They must begin addressing the root issues that's been brought forward. And we need our district attorneys also to hold people accountable.
Yeah, they want to kill them all, Pootie. We need everybody in jail. That's where we're headed. Concentration camps and jail. For everybody that's a nuisance to the ruling elites. Fuck you, Sam.
At the same time, we're looking at what we can do within our authority and our control. So with that, I have issued a lifetime ban.
Oh, yeah, aren't you? He's the king of TRIMET, me, Sammy Dasu, have issued a lifetime ban because I'm king of TRIMET and only I can do these things.
To the man that's arrested in the attack of the elderly man in Gresham, in case that he's ever released. I think it was horrific what occurred in that situation. And also, I've issued the woman who pushed a toddler at Gateway into our light rail track right-of-way a 5-year exclusion. President Timmons...
5 years, man. The king of TRIMET has excluded you for 5 years. Like anybody would know what she looked like if she got on the bus or train. Nobody knows what she looks like.
I'll stop here before I go on and continue my report, just to find out if any board members have any questions for myself or either Director Wilson.
Yeah, any questions?
Board members,
Ozzy,
Director Gonzalez?
My favorite board member, Ozzy. He's my favorite board member by far. Even though he's a hack, I like him. I just like him. I don't know why. Okay, Oz.
Thank you, Sam. Here, thank you for the opportunity to ask at this moment. How are those bans enforced? And who are they enforced by?
Ozzy with a good question. Nobody can enforce them, Ozzy. Okay, they're not enforceable. They're theater. Okay, they're theater. But let's hear how the answer comes out.
I'm going to go to our general counsel.
Yeah, we're going to go to our general counsel because I don't know. Oh, I got Henry. Henry showed up on Twitter. We don't see him very often, but he shows up occasionally. We'll send Henry
here, and she'll give that update.
Thank you, Director Gonzalez. Well, the very first step is that we have to serve the people that are banned. So after General Manager DeSue issues the exclusions, we serve them, and we were able to serve both of those individuals. They're in jail right now.
That girl, you serve the fucking psychos. They've been served notice that if you go on TRIMET, we will arrest you. We have 2 psychos and we've eliminated them.
So it takes effect immediately. And then we have a whole bunch of behind-the-scenes types of tools that we're now using.
They got tools. She's got tools. She's also got tools. I like the tools. They got tools. Everybody's got tools now. Tools.
that we've been putting into place over the last few months to make sure that the staff out on the system, our safety staff, know who these individuals are and would identify them if in fact they try to be.
Remember in 6 months who they are, right? Sure, right. Sure, they're gonna. Absolutely.
Use the system again. Does that answer your question?
No.
Yes, thank you.
Director Way?
Thank you so much, Andrew, for the great overview and presentation.
Thank
I
you.
would be
Great.
excited to see sort of maybe a follow-up or a part 2 of, some of the collaboration that you were mentioning with cities, counties, even the state level of addressing some of the root causes of the problems, and just maybe a follow-up, doesn't have to be immediate, obviously, because this is a complex issue, as you said, and, we need everybody around the table to sort of, make sure people are housed and, that they can get from point A to point B. So that would be, if it's possible, it would be great to just get a follow-up based on those conversations. And also thank you, and General Manager Dessou for going to the.
Thank you, Dessou. You're the greatest guy. Andy's the greatest guy. We're all great. We're all going to be great. Everything's great.
Joint Transportation committee hearing yesterday. I will definitely be listening on that as well, because I do agree with General Manager Dessou that this is a complex problem, and we need everybody around the table.
Yeah, well, you just need to have like people stationed at transit centers and people stationed at MAX stations, but that seems to be too complicated for you to figure out to do that. You'd rather have them walking around in gangs of 10 occasionally.
Including, folks who actually deliver those services, health and human services in the community. So that, a little bit of a request if that's okay.
No, thank you, Director Roy, and absolutely be happy to do that. And I do think we are meeting regularly. A couple weeks ago, I met with Representative Ricky Ruiz at his office, had a great conversation about ways in which he can support some of our efforts, and just really appreciated that interest from Representative Ruiz. Also met with Representative Nelson, and he's going to be spending some time at the Public Safety Office with me, just kind of getting to know us a little bit better. So we've tried to really build those partnerships with folks that are out there that are interested, and we really appreciate their interest in trying to help us as a community. And so we'll continue to do that. I'm also meeting with folks with the city of Portland in terms of return to work committees that was under formerly Sam Adams Group, in terms of trying to build ridership return and public safety and those types of things.
Do you remember, maybe you're not up on the current events there, old Andy baby, but Sam has been resigned in disgrace.
So those are just some of the things that we're doing in the background as a team, trying to sync in with some of our partners and work together. But I'd be happy to come back and have kind of a more formal report of some of that collaboration. So great question. Thank you.
Thanks.
Director Bauman?
Yes, thank you for the report. As Andrew knows, I've been recently made aware of conditions on the MAX trains early in the morning before rush hour starts, and the conditions are shocking, with dangerous conditions, dangerous individuals, and non-destinational riders sleeping, and anyway, other conditions on the trains that are clearly uncomfortable for riders. And I imagine that we've lost some early morning riders. It wouldn't surprise me because of these conditions. So you alluded to the plan to do some early morning.
They don't care about the riders. Let's get that straight. This is a capital projects agency. The transit system itself is like, all right, we have it, but we don't really care about it.
Enforcement on the trains. Can you talk more about that? And will there continue to be also enforcement efforts closer to when rush hour starts?
Yeah, great question, and I appreciate our conversation the other day, and just kind of really trying to get after kind of some of the things that we're doing. As we build those numbers back up, we have really started to transition towards allowing some time out on the system for our groups and teams. And these are kind of like mission work that we have done in the past with transit police, but starting to do some code enforcement in the early morning hours. What we've seen in the early morning hours is that folks that are houseless, usually experiencing houselessness, have come out on and gotten on the system early on.
Yeah, they're looking for shelter. Yes, that's correct. They got nowhere to go. They're looking for shelter. That's correct. Correct. There's nowhere for them to go. The society's rejected them. We send all the money to Ukraine. We have endless capital projects, but they get shit.
They're trying to get 3 or 4 hours of sleep. They usually get on at the very early morning hours when there aren't a lot of riders, but there are some riders that are dependent upon us during those hours. And what they're seeing at 4:35 in the morning is really rough out there, because you've got people who have probably spent the night pretty rough rolling into the system to find someplace warm and ride the system. And so what we're doing is providing a kind of a tool in the morning, which is going to include SRT, customer safety supervisors, to ensure that codes are being followed. A lot of times you'll see people sprawled on 3 or 4 seats with a blanket over their head, etc. That kind of activity, you'll see some really unsanitary conditions that arise, and it's really difficult as a rider. I mean, if you're riding in at 5 o'clock in the morning and you're confronted with some of these things, which are unsafe at times, it's very difficult. So we're trying to provide that presence in the early morning hours to limit that behavior and move it off the system. I will say that it's very difficult because there's multiple areas where this activity could be occurring. We do know of 3 particular areas that we're really focused in on, and we're going to be starting these missions in those areas to try to kind of change behavior and make sure people know that they're not going to be able to be allowed to do that on the system. Per the codes of the TRIMET has in place. But it is difficult to do that across the entire system. So while we may be able to impact it at some of the key portal areas where this activity occurs and ride trains subsequently at those early morning hours from those destinations, so we can impact those, we're going to have to do it strategically given the limitations in personnel that we have. It is important to know that this kind of work does need to be done with multiple people. Can't be done by 1 or 2 security guards. You've kind of got to have different tools. The things that you're confronted with in those situations are pretty difficult, and we want to make sure that we're approaching it the right way. But we are confident that as we move into this with the additional personnel that the general manager and the COO have given me the ability to bring on, we're confident that we can start to change those behaviors in the morning. It's going to take some time, and there will always be, as we deal with these community events, there will always be situations that are not what we want on the system. And so we'll need to have a response capability all throughout the day in the early morning hours as well. But really this mission-focused work is where we're central on this strategy. So.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I have a follow-up on
that particular situation. You know, it's not just a matter of moving them off the system, but finding an alternate place for them to be.
Right.
And even though that's not maybe
There's no place for them to be. Okay, we're living in a death cult, all right? It's death or they're going to be in the way. Okay, you guys are supporting a death cult. There's no place for them. We live in a death cult, you understand?
the role of TRIMET, it's the only way to really resolve it, because to me, they have to have another place to be.
Well, you're right.
And so I'm hopeful that just not asking them to leave the system, that we're also trying in particular key areas where there's larger populations of people seeking that relief from the elements, that we find some kind of shelter and community organization that is an alternative to our light rail system.
That's a great point, and I do want to make you all aware, this is part of when we're talking about this larger group effort of this activity, that's related to that, and that's why it's so important, and honestly, a very good success story, I think, for this agency to have a tool like the SRT, who is synced in with local community outreach and outreach services to be able to make those connections versus just say, get off the train, you know? The other thing that happens out there is welfare checks, and that's why we do a lot of first aid training with the SRT. It's important that they have the tools available to be able to address kind of those situations, understand when to call medical personnel. But those things are happening out there where even in just early morning discussions, you have incidents where you realize medical personnel needs to be involved as well to help this person who's not getting off the train, et cetera. So that's really important. And I will say that we also kind of goes towards the strategy in the sense that we're trying to do this in areas where there's social services available and areas for them to go, because we don't want to move people off of a train in the middle of nowhere, I'll say proverbial nowhere, where they have no place to go, because that'll force them to either go out into the community, be unsafe, probably have some issues themselves, and or just wait for us to leave and get back on the train later, right? So we try to move them off in a way that's strategic with services available.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from board members before we return to the general manager's report? Director Baumann?
Let me just add quickly, I'm optimistic that these efforts will have a real impact. The challenge for us then, once conditions are improved, is to inform the public that it's safe to come back to transit, and so that's kind of a longer term challenge for us. But thank you for.
Chances of you getting hurt are very small. Okay, all of this shit is hyped up in the media. You can ride transit. Nobody's going to bother you. Okay? Very unlikely for you as a rider. But if you're going to get all excited over being around the disposed or being around a bunch of guys who are trying to get high, then don't ride the transit. But those people are harmless. Okay? They're not going to bother you. I drove transit for 20 years. All those people are harmless. Unless you start fucking with them. And then, of course, you're putting yourself in harm's way. You can ride TRIMET. Nobody's going to kill you. Nobody's going to attack you. How often do we hear stories of riders getting attacked for no reason? Hardly ever, right? Very rare. Drivers get attacked, and there's usually reasons that happens. Occasionally, as in recently, there'll be a random attack against the driver that has nothing to do with the driver.
For all that you're doing on these issues.
Well, thank you. So we'll move back to you, General Manager.
Thank you, Andrew, and really appreciate that. I do want to say that one of the comments that we were talking last night and Salem is how do we work together collaboratively in a coordinated effort to bring on teams that can assist people that are homeless to be able to have referrals. So if we go and remove them from the train, to refer them to housing or temporary shelter.
There's no housing, there's no temporary shelter. If they're sitting on the train not bothering anybody, why would you hassle them? Just leave them alone. Why would you? I mean, if they're smoking fentanyl or acting crazy, I can understand you're going to have to remove them. But if they're just sitting there, why do you care? Why the fuck do you care?
And also refer them to mental treatment.
You're not going to refer anybody to anything, okay? Stop lying. There's no referral.
And have the services available. So that comprehensive package that we're going to work on.
There is no comprehensive package. Stop lying, Christ.
And put together, that's going to all contain everything that's there. And we'll definitely be talking to the board and also to the public as we move forward.
We're going to figure it out. We're Sam Demand.
Thank you.
Okay, turning to ridership, TriMet provided about 4 million.
1 billion rides. Oh, that's 4 million rides.
Trips in the month of December. And that put our weekly ridership at about...
Notice how they don't tell you how many people that actually is. They make sure that they don't tell you that part.
999,000 trips per week. However, our weekly ridership was up 11.6% over December of 2021, but it remained down at about 43% from pre-pandemic levels. And as a reminder, I would like to let the board know as we did experience severe weather between December 22nd and I would say all the way up until New Year's. We were dealing with that. But during that period over the Christmas holidays, we temporarily suspended MAX services. And we also reduced our bus services to primary routes due to strong wind, ice and snow, and electrical outlets there. So that really impacted.
What are you talking about? Electrical outlets? What are you fucking? What the hell are you talking? You don't know what you're talking about, Sam.
Ridership during the month of December. And as a result, we saw our first month since April of 2022 where our weekly trips dipped below 1 million trips per week.
Why don't you just tell us how many people are riding? Stop with the trips baloney. Yeah.
Now, let's turn to some great news. One, TriMet's 60-foot articulated buses will be picking riders up on our FX2 Division Street this Sunday. The manufacturer Nova Bus, they've installed a fix to the bolt issue that we were dealing with, which was first identified by TriMet. You recall that led to an industry-wide recall. So with the buses being fixed and a safe to return to service, operators received refresher training and with the articulated buses, and we are now ready to return to service.
Well, I'm sure the people that use those buses will appreciate that.
This weekend. So our riders is excited, and we are excited.
Too bad the fucking Nova bus doesn't know how to make a bus. What kind of crap is that anyway?
The staff to get those buses out there. So looking forward to that. And then finally, wanted to say this morning, a reminder that TriMet will honor Rosa Parks with free rides on our buses and trains on her birthday, which is February 4th. We'll be joined by our partners at C-Tran and the Portland Streetcar to celebrate transit's equity and lasting legacy.
There's no equity on transit, you lying shit. Okay, there's no equity. Stop it. It's virtue signaling at its finest right here.
Of Rosa Parks. This is our third year of providing free service on our birthday, and most of you were on the board at the time. You'll remember the resolution was passed back in 2021 to make this an annual event. This resolution was spearheaded by Board Director Keith Edwards, called on everyone to acknowledge Ms. Parks' bravery as she stayed seated on a city bus and demonstration for equal treatment of blacks. Her action and arrests ignited the Montgomery bus boycott and energized the civil rights.
And now if she tried that, they'd fucking beat her over the head, kill her, throw her in a goddamn police car, and throw her into the ditch. Whoops, what's that? Get that out of there.
Movement. So I would like to ask anyone that's riding on February 4th, take time to remember the pivotal role Rosa Parks played in American history. So President Simmons, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Board members, do you have any further questions for the general manager before we move on with the meeting?
Okay, that was actually a very entertaining general manager report.
Thank you, General Manager.
That was actually very entertaining for the general manager's report. I mean, maybe it's because I'm drinking today, but that was good. I mean, I enjoyed it. And we'll be back for another. Oh, that's fucking an hour of this shit. I just been see when you're drunk, you can handle this shit for hours. Over and out.